public emergency in Westmoreland. A gunman earlier today walked into an anti-violence training seminar where he fatally shot a participant in front of other attendees. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the Peace Management Initiative Gender-Based Violence Seminar was being held at the Source Center on Barracks Road in Savannah, Lamar, when the young male participant was gunned down. Reports coming into our news center are that shortly before 1 p.m., the trainee who was seated during the lunch break was pounced upon and shot by the lone gunman on the premises of the Resource Center where the event was being staged. The police have confirmed the fatal shooting, but no motive has been established. We will bring you more on this story in subsequent newscasts. In other news tonight, the opposition, during a press conference held earlier today, responded to the recent announcement made by Prime Minister Andrew Holness that states of emergencies SOEs will be imposed in several police divisions across Jamaica. Here is Colleen May with the details.
Leader of the opposition and President of the People's National Party, Mark Golding, during today's press conference at their head office in Kingston, says with the recent announcement of states of emergency SOEs in several police divisions indicates that the government's toolbox is empty.
Question is, why is the government going backwards? Clearly, their toolbox is empty. I must remind Jamaica that states of emergency were used for 3 years, from 2017 to 2020. They failed. Gangsters migrated to other areas of the country, and murders continued. The data make this quite clear. The average annual number of murders in Jamaica over those 3 years was significantly higher than the average annual number of murders achieved over the previous 4 years under the People's National Party administration. This was clearly a failed strategy. Over those 3 years, 2017 to 2020, the states of emergency have involved many thousands of young Jamaicans being detained without charge, some of them for many months. Their rights were trampled on by being locked up for extended periods without justification. Some of them lost their jobs. Many of them suffered lasting setbacks in their lives. The vast majority of these detained persons were eventually released with no compensation. This is not the Jamaica that our ancestors fought and gave their lives for.
During the PNP's press conference on national issues such as national security and state of emergency, Mr. Golding, in his continued objections of the SOEs as an effective strategy for crime fighting, said that very few prosecutions have arisen from years of SOEs.
The 3 years of the SOEs also encouraged sloppy law enforcement. The power to detain without charge became a power to ignore the discipline of thorough investigation of cases and preparing cases to secure convictions in court. The recovery of firearms and ammunition during the states of emergency was disappointingly low, and very few prosecutions for serious offenses have arisen from the SOEs. The rank and file of the security forces grew frustrated with the adverse working conditions involved in manning checkpoints under the elements for long hours, and they resent that there were no improvements in their compensation to recognize the sacrifice they were making. We sympathize with their plight. They are upset about being asked to do this again. For over a year since discontinuing the states of emergency during 2020, the government has not come up with anything to tackle the crime problem. They are bankrupt on ideas. They have passed no new legislation. There have been no new organizational changes within the security forces. There has been no new strategy. The government has failed to keep Jamaicans safe. Their record on crime and crime control is abysmal.
He said that there must be a balanced approach in fighting crime, noting that the use of SOEs is illogical.
These lapses and failures will not occur under the next PNP administration. We see legislative agility as a strategic imperative in tackling the crime problem in a sustainable way. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been consistent in my opposition to the use of states of emergency as a strategy to tackle Jamaica's long-standing problem of violent crime. It does not work, and it will not work. Jamaica deserves better. We do not need states of emergency and to take away the rights of our people to make Jamaica safe. The JDF can support the police on patrols and at checkpoints without states of emergency. It is just a question of how you organize your security forces. It has been going on for years. We do not need states of emergency to have police and soldiers on the ground in our communities. There can be curfews, there can be cordon and search without states of emergency. These tools exist under ordinary legislation, and it is a dangerous falsehood, fake news spread by this government to suggest that having security on the ground means you have to have states of emergency. This use of states of emergency is also, in my opinion, illegal and unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has said so. The government is appealing that decision, but the Court of Appeal has not yet ruled on the matter. And there is another case before the Constitutional Court to be heard in December challenging this use of states of emergency. The judicial process has been grossly disrespected by this government by going back to that strategy when the matter is before the courts. We do not support this violation of the principle of separation of powers.
Meanwhile, Senator Peter Bunting, Shadow Minister of National Security, in his remarks said that the government has gone all in on the strategy of militarizing the country's policing.
In the Ministry of National Security, we have seen a recurrent budget increase from 50 billion in 2014 to just over 80 billion in 2021-22. The JDF's recurrent budget has more than doubled, moving from 12 billion to 26 billion, while the JCF's recurrent budget has increased by only a third. On the capital expenditure side, the JDF has again enjoyed the lion's share of the ministry's budget, consistently receiving an allocation of twice the JCF's capital budget over the last 4 years. The JDF's capital budget peaked at over 12 billion per year. Now bear in mind that the capital budget of the Ministry of Education is $2 billion. Therefore, the JDF alone had a capital budget of 6 times the Ministry of Education. So the government has gone all in on this strategy of militarizing our policing. We need a state of emergency to address corruption that is rampant by this government. We need a state of emergency to address the social conditions in these communities that are generating a third, notwithstanding that they represent only 1% of the geographical area of Jamaica, but are generating a third of the violent crime. We need a state of emergency in terms of social investment in those communities, not continual suppression by militaristic style policing.
For her part, Senator Donna Scott-Motley, Shadow Minister of Justice and Gender Affairs, said that the SOEs is the only tool being used by the Prime Minister to fight crime and that this infringes on the right to liberty.
The Constitution of Jamaica, which we hold so dear, and one which all the democratic foundations are built, made it very, very pellucid that a state of emergency could only be called under certain circumstances, because it acknowledged the right to liberty. We have had murders increasing for some time. We have had these barbaric acts on display. But the Prime Minister because he wants to use this only tool that he knows that does not require a significant amount of effort on his part, he tells us that there is an emergency. You ask citizens, what is it that you like about a state of emergency? They like the fact that there are a lot of soldiers in their community and there are a lot of police in their community, and they want some street lights fixed in their community. I say to the governing party, the Jamaica Labour Party, go out there and do what the people want, but do not apprehend the young men in this society and throw them in jail for days, for months, for years. Everton Douglas was detained for 204 days and one of his colleagues for 458 days when no charge was laid. People should take note because it is a signal that he does not view this document in a way which he is required to do, and that he does not value the oath which he has taken over and over and over again as one of the longest serving members of Parliament.
Reporting for Mellow TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen, for that report, and we will bring you full coverage of the PNP's press conference immediately following this newscast. Still making the news tonight, an ANANDA alert has been activated for 17-year-old Nordia Palmer of White Road District, MCCOOKS, Penn, St. Catherine, who has been missing since Saturday, November 13. Nordia is of brown complexion, slim build, and is approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall. Reports from the Spanish Town Police coming into our news center are that Nordia was last seen at home dressed in a navy blue skirt suit and a pair of black slippers. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Nordia Palmer is being asked to contact the Spanish Town Police at 876-984-2305, Police Emergency 119, or the nearest police station. And an ANANDA alert has also been activated for 16-year-old MONIQUE GAYLE of GULLY, Manchester, who has been missing since Tuesday, November 2. MONIQUE is of brown complexion, medium build, and is approximately 5 feet tall. Reports from the Mandeville police coming into our news center are that MONIQUE left home dressed in a white blouse, black skirt, a pair of black shoes, and white socks. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of MONIQUE GAYLE is being asked to contact the Mandeville Police at 876-962-2250, Police Emergency 119, or the nearest police station. We go now to tonight's COVID-19 update. 30 new cases of the COVID-19 virus and 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths have been recorded in Jamaica, increasing the total of confirmed cases to 90,341 and the total of fatalities now to 2,331. The deceased are comprised of a 55-year-old male from Kingston and St. Andrew and a 70-year-old male from St. James. Meanwhile, of the new cases, 20 are women and 10 are men, ranging in age from 10 months to 94 years. In tonight's COVID-19 parish breakdown, St. Catherine and Kingston and St. Andrew recorded 10 cases each. St. James, Westmoreland, Trelawny and Portland recorded 2 cases each. Clarendon and St. Mary recorded 1 case each, while Manchester, St. Elizabeth, St. Anne, Hanover and St. Thomas have no cases on record for the stipulated period. In the meantime, there were 177 additional recoveries, increasing the total of recovered persons now to 61,024. Continuing with the news tonight, The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, is urging the Education Ministry to prioritize a full return to face-to-face schooling by using schools as vaccination sites for the children and teachers to boost accessibility for the cohort. The PSOJ says the ministry's efforts to improve the country's education system is a step in the right direction. They stated that the continued vaccination of children 12 to 18 years is a critical factor towards achieving the goal of full resumption. The PSOJ says currently over 60% of the Jamaican workforce has no certification. As such, the organization says the ideas being pursued by the ministry to improve this statistic, including the recent introduction of the compulsory Sixth Form Pathways program, is welcomed. The PSOJ further notes that it is awaiting a report from the Education Transformation Task Force on the implementation timeliness of these ideas. Now, the organization is also recommending that the Education COVID-19 Management Task Force be used as a social partnership that engages all stakeholders in the sector on objectives to ensure the ideas are executed adequately. It says the engagement should nurture genuine partnership, foster two-way communication, and encourage ownership from stakeholders. The PSOJ says it has also begun working with Education Minister Favour Williams to develop a balanced scorecard framework. Now, this framework will provide the tools to support the implementation and execution of programs to ensure that they have the desired impact. Still making Mellow TV news, the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, says it is aware that unscrupulous persons are circulating a fraudulent message that claims that the bank is offering prize money in the form of a check for a mobile phone competition. BOJ has advised that the bank is not involved in the award of prize money for any mobile phone competition. Now, anyone who can identify the source of this fraudulent message is being asked to report the matter to the police. And that's our news package for you tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Mellow TV Evening News at 8. I am Shelley Hill. Do stay safe and pleasant viewing.